maybe I can be that gap for zero value waste. So it's a term we just came up with, but everything else had value in the market, but there's some other thing like perceived value. So how do we bring that about? How do we use waste as a resource?
The world is becoming more aware of the concept of zero waste, and several of us are looking for ways and means to become more sustainable in our own lives. It's an undeniable fact, though, that sustainable lifestyles are not uniformly accessible. The concept of just transitions to sustainable lifestyle was in fact the theme of this year's World Consumer Rights Day, ensuring that as we shift to greener lifestyles, cleaner energy sources, and eco friendly spaces, no one is left behind. We aim to create a world where sustainability is not just for the privileged, but for everyone. This shift needs all of us to come together as one, with businesses being one of the most important stakeholders who need to support this transition. And that is why we're meeting with Anne Andra today. Anne Andra is an inspiring entrepreneur, sustainability consultant, and product development expert who has dedicated her career to driving impactful change in the realm of waste management and environmental sustainability. Ants Wasted 360 Solutions is a social endeavor that collects clean dry waste from apartment blocks, wedding halls, markets, etc., and give these a second lease of life. The waste that is collected could be pre loved clothes, books, milk packets, x ray sheets, tablet strips, floral wastes, and even cigarette butts. These materials are upcycled or recycled, sometimes are given as donations. The aim is to keep the value of resources as intact as possible throughout its life cycle. This eco conscious initiative is focused on tackling the growing issue of solid waste in urban areas by utilizing technology, behavioral analysis, and innovative approaches to minimize waste and maximize resource recovery. Anne's vision is not only to help reduce the waste burden on communities, but also to create job opportunities for undeserved populations. Hello, Anne. So, can you tell us about your business and what inspired you to start an eco friendly and a sustainable venture?
So I started Wasted 360 Solutions back in 2016 unofficially. So I was still in a job that time. So I didn't even register the company or do anything. I think I was struggling to find the gap between like what are the waste being generated. Waste speakers are there in a context of India, but what is getting recycled, like scrap shops and all that, but why are they landfills? So I think that gap I couldn't really understand till I could go on ground and do some experiments. So I can't really say I started the business then or thought about it, but it definitely set the tone for what would eventually become Wasted 360 Solutions. So the idea was that uh, it grew really organically. It was not like I sat behind a desk and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do and this is how I'll do it. I realized that I actually don't have any data or information, so I have to go on ground. So while collecting the waste, I was like, okay, maybe these things can become resources since there's no material that can be processed over here, like in the state or within the region or the city. Sometimes even you can't even process it in the country, so you just call it as non-recyclable. So I was like, okay, maybe I can be that gap for zero value waste. So it's a term we just came up with, but everything else had value in the market, but there's some other thing like perceived value. So how do we bring that about? How do we use waste as a resource? So in 2019, it officially got set up, and yeah, this is the entire crux of how it happened.
Thank you, ma'am. So, how do you define sustainability in the context of your business?
So the thing is, the business works in two ways. We have users, we don't charge them anything, and then we have customers. right? So we either sell them secondhand products or sustainable products that we've acquired from small businesses, or some sort of services to these clients, like reducing your waste at source, choosing eco-friendly gift hampers. So there's a range of services that we do on this site. The user that is relevant for this business to keep going are the people who come and drop off their source segregated dry waste. So for me, I look at sustainability as just encouraging people to take action by making it easier for them. So we have a lot of awareness that we get on sustainability, on consumerism, on being a conscious consumer, or there's so many things in this sphere of circular economy and waste management and sustainability that it gets so overwhelming. And I feel like Wasted has found a niche for itself to make that sustainable action easier, more accessible, and also in a way fun.
Have you noticed a shift in consumer behavior towards sustainable products and services? And what are the key drivers?
I think over the years, it's definitely changed, especially post pandemic, when people had to sit with their waste and be conscious of the things that they were generating or using or discarding and how they were doing these processes. There was a huge shift after the pandemic. People were also open to secondhand purchasing. They were open to pay a higher price point for something that will give value to their health, right? So they started valuing their health, their experiences more than, I want to buy a house versus shall I take a vacation every year. So you work towards these kind of goals as Indian consumers. You're taught to save for a rainy day. You're taught to be very careful and smart with your money and not take any risk, right? So I feel the mentality post COVID, a lot of things have had an effect on it, being way more positive to using sustainable products. So the problem seems much closer to home than it felt like if we didn't have the pandemic and we were just going to go through life as it was. It was a hard stop for a lot of people to notice a lot of things about environmental health, their personal health, their community's health, right? So I think that helped at one level. Second level is the people who are sustainable continue to be sustainable. You cannot push them to make choices. They don't fall for fast fashion trends. They will only buy when they need. It's very, very rare they would go out. Or it might be for someone else, not for their personal use also. So the sustainable crowd is managed. Like if you've been thinking about it, you'll slowly manage it. But it's the ones who choose fast fashion and who choose your quick service sort of thing, it's them, I feel them getting stronger and stronger, whereas we are not able to catch up. So as we see positive trends in accepting sustainable products and services, I also see the other side of the coin where you'd rather use fast fashion or buy things that are readily available on Amazon than think it's a very mental sort of thing, right? It's like it's more related to psychology. I honestly am not able to understand why this happens, but personally at a business level, we've seen it over the past 3 years of running Chennai's first second-hand store. We've seen people embrace natural cleaners, embrace like buying clothes at a discounted rate, different collections, different sort of like more timeless pieces, some better quality things that come in. They're choosing materials better. So I don't know. I feel like both of them are going hand in hand. But once we see the fast fashion numbers and all these Black Friday kind of sales, like Diwali, Pongal, our versions of those sales, it's a little scary. We don't have the data to be that scared, but I would think that everyone is buying a new outfit after it's like debuted on Instagram. They don't want to wear it again. And everyone's a creator or an influencer or feels like unique and they want their clothing sense or their, personality to reflect through their spaces and themselves. So it's a bit conflicting. I think the data shows that consumers are taking better steps, but we can't keep up with the guys who have already had fast fashions.
It's so true, ma'am. I think pandemic did change a lot of things, including our mindset. But I also think as youngsters, as you said, we have that fear of missing out on the fashion trends and
Correct.
so yeah, it's kind of hard to be sustainable. Moving on, what role do you think consumer information and awareness play in promoting sustainable consumption?
So I think related to consumer information and awareness, they only are using the product packaging for this information, right? So they, as much as they see these the information given to them through advertising or social media, any of it, it's to make smarter decisions. Like I think people as Indians, we associate very closely with our brands, right? It's not just one advertisement that makes us feel wholesome with them. From
Emotion.
it's an emotion with all of our Indian brands, homegrown brands. So it becomes very difficult for them to make smart decisions when they're getting exploited by the people they trust, right? So as much as there is information from the brand side, they get to tell whatever they want. But if we can counter it with data and knowledge that we derive on ground through other organizations who work really hard to collect this research and information, it makes us all take better decisions. So putting it out in the right way, that it can, none of these organizations or activists or small businesses like ours, even if we have the data and information, we can't reach that many people. So we'll have to go the gimmick way, or try our best to make something that might go viral or not.
And again, you need money for marketing.
Exactly, we could never compete with the brand's marketing budget. So this information, while I think is very very needed, it's very important who is putting out this information. If it's from the brand side, you have to take everything with a big spoon of salt, right? You can't fall for everything that they tell you. It's very important that you do your own research, or you don't consume that product, and you actually have to tell people why. We can't keep all the information to ourselves. We can't gatekeep it anymore, because it's important to be talked about and called out on. That I would like to think that brands would take better measurements and steps towards fixing some things, if they even know that it's as big a problem as it is.
How do you ensure transparency in your sustainability claims to avoid greenwashing?
I think what has worked for us is the honesty. Even if we have to sometimes choose non-sustainable options, we are just open to telling people about it. For example, selling second-hand clothes was not the ideal situation, right? It's still something that I'm making someone buy. What was important was that the idea of circularity was being shown through this space. So it did work against my own ethics, because I have not bought anything new for years. It became very difficult for me to market the thrift store itself. I struggled a lot, but we had to have something that pays the bills and keeps the lights on, right? So it was more about this honesty and transparency that worked for me. In the beginning, when we started, I would not ship anything of the thrift store outside Chennai. If anyone would ask us, hey, is this for sale? Be like, no, it's only for sale in Chennai, or only for sale from store. But obviously, that doesn't sustain. We have to keep growing. So even if they push us to courier it, we would India post it. We would try our best to use things that make sense for us. Any of these are the online orders packed, right? Like we would try to use packaging and covers that have already come by.
Okay.
So again, this part is also addressed very organically. We don't want to come across as people who know everything, because we don't. We're all learning, and we are just growing with people. We take a lot of feedback from our own consumers and users. We've been able to find alternate markets and avenues because of this honest conversation and collaboration. So I think that's the only way to do this.
It's really great that your transparency has taken you so far. What policies or government regulations have helped or hindered your sustainability efforts?
I'm not sure if any of the regulations have helped, neither hindered us. I'll be honest about that. I've also consciously had to stay away from things like this, because I was creating everything new from scratch. I didn't have any blueprint to see how it's done. No one was collecting only zero value waste and functioning as a company. No one could guide me how a secondhand store would look like. So there was a lot of learning that we had to do on ground. So since we ended up doing that, I don't think I actively looked for help or support. I was like, how do I do this without any intervention from anywhere. But there are things like the Mudra loan for women entrepreneurs that has helped. I was doubtful whether I would get because I was in waste management and service. So that's helped a lot on keeping our, credit rolling, and giving value and thing to the business. So that's been helpful. Any sort of things related to waste itself, I think EPR has been helpful for me personally to understand how brands are accountable to things. So extended producer responsibility, though we don't have the EPR compliance, it set a guideline for all of us to feel a little bit protected, and like we have a feeling of we are in this together, right? And definitely the brands need to feel that. So there are a lot of policies that are out there for sustainable organizations, and I feel the work that we do is so much on ground that we don't really focus on it. And I'm sure in another 5 years that will all become important. What happens is people who are trying to write policy or work on these reach out to us for on ground information, because there's a lot of mismatch from one person sitting behind a desk and planning and writing something out, whereas if they reach out to us and tell us that, hey, this is a survey we want done, or this is what we want to understand from this certain target group, so would you be able to like have these conversations on our behalf and get us this information, that I feel would be the best way to go forward. So actual policies, in short, no, nothing has helped us or hindered us.
How do you see the role of businesses in influencing policy for better sustainability practices?
It's a little bit on what I covered in the last question, but that could become an important part, like businesses playing some sort of role in policy making, like sharing the information on ground. So more calculated risks are taken, since it's something that we all are learning together. While shaping policy, getting as many voices to the table and information being given to the right people who can cut out the noise is important. And that's the point of the guys who work on policy making, right? They know what is actually useful and what is going to translate on ground. So I've seen a lot of policies not have had it affect me, but I've seen it deter a lot of things on ground. So I feel small businesses or even businesses at whatever scale can provide this knowledge and data and information, which is invaluable for shaping policy. So even though the business might not have its role and operations might not be relevant to the policy that is being fleshed out, I still feel like if there is some sort of cross promotion and some information that can be acquired from them, there's no better place to go to than businesses, because there's so much on ground.
I think that's true. Policymakers should depend on the businesses to get the on ground research data because they can't do everything by themselves. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start a sustainable business?
I try my best not to give advice to people in general because I end up doing it too much. But I mean, for entrepreneurs looking to enter this field, I would think that what is important is to not chase the money. Obviously, you're not coming to it for the money, but if you keep that as your goal, it'll be very difficult. There is a way to get to the money, but your sustaining in a project or work like this depends a lot on you having a real genuine need and concern that you want to address. There's no point entering it like any other business and saying, oh, what are the top 10 things that should I get into food or should I get into product or service? It doesn't work like that. Because there'll be a lot of fights, there'll be a lot of haggling within yourself, like, why am I doing this? For what am I doing this? So unless you have that clarity of thought, it'll be very difficult, because you would see your peers making way more money or way more perceived like success, and you would feel stuck or stagnant, and that's not fair to do to yourself. So unless you feel like it's really something that you can't not think about and it's eating away at your mind, then is the right time to get into sustainability. I would always say that look at it as a side hustle first and then see if it can sustain. That's personally what worked for me. I knew I didn't want to create a product and sell anything to people. So that clarity of thought was really helpful. I knew I wanted to do service, and I also didn't want to take away the livelihood of waste, because which means I had to work in non-plastic, non-e-waste, and non-paper sort of thing. So the paths got defined for me very organically with the way I wanted to do things. So you can approach it the way it works for you. Like, I don't want to do this, or I definitely want to do this, and then cut out the rest of the noise. But getting into sustainable businesses, whether a product or service, requires a lot of like mental strength from your end.
Patience.
Yeah, patience, strength. You will have to depend on the community to support you in whatever way possible. So if you're going to be an introvert, it's very difficult for you to do it, which is something I faced. So I had to depend a lot on other people helping spread the word for me. I couldn't do it myself. I don't feel comfortable making reels and showing my face, putting my face out there all the time. So I struggle. So, but for some other person, that might be the way that they could, sort out a sustainable brand or a business. So it's to work towards your strengths, see that it's a burning need and something that you really desire to do. And yeah, about the money was the last. So this would be the overall advice if I had to give.
I think for people who want to get into sustainable business, as you said, we have to get our intention about the bigger purpose clear, and then the money will follow later. So, what are some upcoming innovations in sustainability that excite you the most?
So I would say that I think all innovation related to using waste as a resource always like makes it super exciting. I've heard of Indian organizations like Urvi Sustainable Practices trying to make floral waste into a type of leather which is biodegradable, so that we can replace that entire polluting product. So there are a lot of things where waste is used as a resource that really excites me. That's one. Then using seaweed as plastic packaging, or these replacements for any of these problematic materials really excites me. I think mainly because then we comply with that circularity. A lot of the way we talk about circularity is the post-consumer waste. We don't talk about a lot of the resources, the time, the effort that goes into the pre-consumer part, right?
From the
Like the
manufacturing.
manufacturing process, from acquiring the material to starting the manufacturing to having it distributed, and that whole chain we miss out and just talk about the waste. So once circularity comes into it, then a true EPR sort of thing is accomplished. All of the raw material also being acquired from some sort of waste processes, because I think that gap has been bridged by so many businesses. If you have something, there's always an eco alternative to how you can use it. Yes, there will be issues in acquiring it, or you might need it in a processed way, whereas you might just get the raw material. It's just about trying to bridge that gap, and these innovations really excite me.
Okay, I think this is an interesting question. If you could change one thing about the way sustainability is currently approached in business, what would it be?
I think if I have to focus it on one of the more polluting industries, like where FMCG companies take a big space. So fast moving consumer goods, they kind of tell you that they are not going to be leaving a lot of good things behind, but a lot of waste. So if we could actually see how EPR can be useful, that would be a change that would be really interesting to see how these FMCG brands who have all the money, who profit off of having consumers buy. So if they could allocate like how these brands used to do the take back of the bottles, like 1 or 2 rupees, to come up with a sizable fund to take care of their green operations or thing. It's okay to put it back on the consumer. If you think you're making very less revenue and profit, and you want the support of the consumer in some other way, it might not be monetary. Why did drinking thumbs up and going and dropping it back in the shop make sense? Is because the user also did it, right? They didn't just take the bottle and run away. So they had a vested interest that 2 rupees was already paid. Now I'll get my 2 rupees back. Yes, we live in a day and age that 2 rupees, 10 rupees, 20, 100, 120 rupees might not matter. But if the consumer knows that it's all going towards a good cause, those numbers will only increase over time, which is what I'm hoping that more brands and businesses will adapt. You put if there is a cost towards it, put 50% on the consumer, take 50% yourself. Right? It's part of your revenue. You're going to lose a bit of it, but if you don't do it now, you're going to be called out in a way that will affect you in the future. You might not be able to sell the same product in the same regions for a very long time if you're not thinking about those kind of changes at this moment.
Anne's journey addresses some of the most pressing environmental challenges of our time. By championing innovative waste management practices, empowering informal workers, and collaborating with stakeholders across sectors, she has not only created a thriving business but also made a lasting impact on the global movement towards sustainability. As we continue to navigate the complexities of sustainability, Anne's commitment to positive change serves as a powerful reminder of the impact we can all make when we approach environmental issues with innovation and a sense of responsibility. For over 40 years now, Citizen Consumer and Civic Action Group has been working to protect citizens' rights in consumers and environmental issues and promote good governance processes including transparency, accountability, and participatory decision making. This podcast series, Studio CAG, like our work itself, will cover various areas of interest to the average citizen and consumer. Follow us on our social media pages, CAG Chennai. So we are there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and LinkedIn to keep yourself updated of both social and environmental news. Our website www.cag.org.in and our YouTube pages will also have lots of information which might be of interest to you. Until we meet next time, goodbye.